You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Peak Performance.
Are you ready for an unforgettable ski experience that takes care of everything? Well, visit one of Club Med's mountain resorts and experience the thrill of the slopes without having to worry about a thing. With their all-inclusive packages, you'll get your lift passes, you'll get lessons, delicious meals, exciting après activities, even childcare for the kids. All that's included in the price so you can focus on what matters most, carving perfect turns and enjoying breathtaking views. Visit www.clubmed.us, call 1-800-CLUB-MED, or talk to your travel advisor and book your ski escape getaway today. Hey, welcome, gentlemen, Andrew and Robert of Zoa Engineering. Is that the official title of the brand?
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
You got it right.
Perfect. So let me see if I can sum up what it is you do. So you have basically created like a rope tow or a lift device that you can throw in your backpack and then take skiing. Is that right? To sum
correct.
it up as simply as possible, or can I do it even simpler?
I think that's about as simple as it goes. Yeah.
That's it. Every kid skier's dream made true. I want to have a lift on that lift mountain. Now I got it. Got it in my backpack.
All right, so I need to hear the whole story behind this. So I've heard about you for a little while, and you had a little write-up in the latest Forecast ski magazine. So let's start from the start. So how did who came up with this idea? And like, how did it, like, what was the seed? Like, what was the moment you're like, I'm going to create a lift or like a rope tow device?
I don't know. I guess it was. I'm the one who came up with the idea. I'm not sure if there was no like lightning bolt moment per se. I think it kind of. I was maybe started thinking about the problem and when I was. Or I was inspired a bit by I think I saw a video online. I forget who it was, but a snowboarder had a lift in their backyard, and I was like, oh, that's so great to have. And that led to some sort of chain of thought that came to this. Yeah, I don't remember any sort of bolt of lightning or anything. And yeah, the reality is we're not the first people to think of the overall concept. It's been around for a while.
I'm sure most skiers, snowboarders would be like, oh man, wouldn't it be sweet if we had a lift in our backyard or had one of these things? So I'm sure the idea has been thought of probably 1,000, 10,000 times, but none of those people ever pulled the trigger and like started to investigate how to actually make it happen, unless they have like an old tractor or something like this. But that does a tractor engine or something, but doesn't fit in your backpack.
Yeah, I think there's been a few people who have done stuff like kind of similar to us in the past, never got off the ground, really. Like there's kind of some old patents from the 80s and stuff for devices that have kind of a similar premise to ours, where you have a fixed line and the device drives you up the line. Unfortunately, all of those were done with, two-stroke motors, and they use heavy rope. And I think that's the big difference for us. We're not using climbing rope. We're using paracord, which is super lightweight. And it's compatible with very small, lightweight cords. And that's kind of the thing that makes this actually practical to put in your backpack and bring up with you. That, and, it's all electrically driven. So, and a lot of that stuff is really only possible due to kind of the big surge we've had in e-mobility and, the availability now of these small brushless motors that have a ton of power and great motor controllers that are on the market. So yeah, that's kind of enabled the whole thing.
Right on. So like, before we go too much farther, what are your histories? So like, Robert, you sound like you have like an engineering degree, you have some kind of background in mechanics and engineering. Is that true? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer. So Before I was working on this, I was working at a company that made buckets for firefighting buckets for helicopters. So, and that was like they did a whole bunch of other stuff, some cool products that used for backburning that dispense these little ping pong balls from helicopters or shot them out of a gun. And so I got to work on some interesting projects, a pretty good variety of stuff. Um, and yeah, and then I kind of had this idea, started working on it on the side, and decided to go all in.
And then we'll get to you in a second, Andrew. What's your like background in the outdoors though? Like, what was it that made you think that I want to do like a lift? Are you a big downhill skier? Are you a big backcountry skier? Like, what's kind of like your
Yeah,
your influence?
So I mean, I've been skiing for a long time, and I basically, I got into backcountry skiing kind of, in like late in university or after university was really when I was going out a lot more frequently, and yeah, I was kind of, uh, yeah, as I said, I was a backcountry skier. I liked the idea of the product of this, and
You're just like, man, I wish I had my own lift. I'm like, I could build
yeah,
it.
and so yeah, I guess it's like I started in downhill like most people do, and I still, you know, yeah, I still kind of appreciate what you get from a lift, I guess. As much as the earning your turns thing is uh, not something we shrug off. Like I still love, it's like
Well, you still kind of
I
have to a little bit, right? We'll get to that a
exactly,
little
yeah,
bit when it
yeah.
comes to the functioning of it, but you still have to work a little bit to get
But
it set up.
I think most people are kind of like feel the same way we do, where it's like it's great. You got to enjoy that part to go out and go back and do skiing. But I think most people are still the best part of the whole time is the downhill part. And that's kind of how I felt. And yeah, kind of having a device that would maximize that for me seemed like a great option. Um, but yeah, I don't have I wasn't a professional skier. I just have grown up skiing and really enjoyed it. It was kind of probably like maybe my most passionate kind of pastime. But I wasn't involved in the ski industry in any sort of professional capacity before this.
Right. Andrew, what's your kind of role within the company, and what's some of your reason for being here?
I mean, it was kind of one of those serendipitous meetings. Kind of the two of us coming together here. I mean, the super quick back history. I grew up first 18 years in Nova Scotia, skiing 70 days a year on a 500-foot tall ski hill.
Impressive.
We could go out west.
Dedication. That's some dedication.
Right after school with the lights on, skiing until 10 p.m. We thought it was awesome. We get maybe a March break trip to Quebec or down to Vermont or Sugarloaf or Killington or something. But came out west and did the ski resort management thing because when I was 6 years old, I told my parents, I'm going to run a ski hill one day. That's just it. That's what I'm going to do. And it's kind of been like a 30+ year journey towards that. Worked in the ski industry for a long time. Ended up sitting at Whistler Blackcomb for 6-7 years, and I was the weird guy at Whistler Blackcomb that was 20 years old but had a sick corporate year-round job with benefits and got to live kind of that life on the Whistler side of things.
What were you doing at Whistler Blackcomb?
Well, I started working with the mountain doing the internal events and recognition program. So like I was the guy at Merlin's Thursday night with the club shred tickets.
Right.
Doing all the employee of the year parties, all the internal parties, the guy with Canucks tickets, and that was a sick job. And kind of worked my way up to being the director of youth business. So kind of doing the marketing sales for folks under 18. A lot of this, all the ski school programs, Glacier sales, and I remember I had a phone call with my dad when I was 25 years old, and I said, Dad, you know what? Life seems pretty easy. I got a sick life in Whistler. We got a job, we got benefits, got a house, got a good life going. Where's my motivation? So we moved to Roslyn, a place we knew nobody, and tried to do something we never did before. And ran a few businesses on the side. Was a marketing manager at Mount Baldy for a little while, and then kind of got out of the ski industry. And every time I'm out of it, I spend my whole life thinking back to, okay, how am I going to open up a new kind of ski hill that we haven't seen before, something new. And while I'm doing that thinking, here pops Zoa up when it makes its first big round, and I see the Kickstarter going around, and I see it unofficial, and I think that sounds pretty cool. We kind of reached out and we talked at that point, and then a couple years went by, and they were looking for investors. And at that point, I was at a time where I was ready to invest a bit of money after some exits, and I thought, this is sweet. This is kind of the next path to starting up a new ski hill no one's seen before. But in the meantime, let's make some awesome stuff happen with Zoa.
Cool. So before, just to kind of touch on that, so Robert, you came up with this idea. You probably spent a couple of years building prototypes, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I first started, when I first decided, okay, I'm going to do this and going to commit to it, I gave myself 6 months, and I was like, at the end of 6 months, if I have a decently working prototype, I'll keep going, and if it's if it's a bust, I'll go find another job. And then at the end of the 6 months, I had a prototype that was almost there. And so I was like, oh, I'll just keep going. And that was the same. That's basically where I ended up for the next like year and a half after that. So yeah, it took me, I think, 2 or maybe 3 years before we launched our Kickstarter. And
So
um,
how are you funding this build? Like a couple 3 years before we'll
well,
get to the Kickstarter in a
initially,
second, but is it like you working in your garages? Are you picking up a job on the
yeah,
weekends?
when I did the initial, like when I first started, it was basically all savings, all bootstrapped. And then yeah, I was living in Vancouver. I kind of moved back in with my folks to save money, and yeah, I was making prototyping in their basement. I had kind of built up a decent sort of uh, a decent amount of prototyping infrastructure, I guess, tools for me. Um, like in the meantime, I'm kind of I consider myself a bit of a maker and a hobbyist. So like I like making stuff, and I had 3D printer and some machining tools, and I expanded that as I went. But yeah, it was all kind of
Loading
on
up
savings initially.
loading up the parents' basement with a bunch of junk and
Yeah,
equipment.
yeah, basically. And um and yeah, so like yeah, you know um I will say I'm there's something I'm very proud of. Is I did do like the prototyping phase of this and the development on a real shoestring, and I'm proud that we were able to get as far as we did with that. And yeah, and then after that, it was Kickstarter. And when we launched the Kickstarter, that kind of funded the initial production run for that, but it was just
When
enough for that.
was the first Kickstarter?
So what was that? 2021, I think, was the first Kickstarter. Um,
And how did that go? So basically, you're like, what are you presenting this as in order to get that? And how much were you looking to raise? How many people did you have
well,
that bought
we
in?
I tried to develop the product so that uh, we could do it on a relatively low budget. All I was really working on was what we could raise on the Kickstarter to make these things. So um, so yeah, we set the initial goal at $50,000, and we knew that if that's all we got, we would have to build things. There's only a certain way we could do it, and it wasn't really very scalable, but we'd be able to do that, and then probably call it a day after that. But thankfully, we raised 200,000. That let us buy kind of the more expensive tooling and kind of really get things rolling and order enough quantities that we were able to kind of put all those through. And um, yeah, I think we did like a little over 100 units for the Kickstarter and the Indiegogo together. And yeah, and we were able to, and that was all made at the time. I was back in Vancouver with my now fiance, anyways, and that was all made in my spare bedroom. The all the those units, so it was basically like yeah, like basically a den for most people. Like it's the
So
so we had
basically creating. So did you like create like one at a time, or did you have a little assembly line going? Did you
uh
call your friends in and be like, "Hey,
well
pizza and beer"?
yeah, I had a pretty good workshop set up, and some stuff had to be done one at a time. But all the units, like yeah, I would basically build up. I built up everything in sub assemblies, and then you assemble it from there. I did have to get like a storage space for inventory when we were ordering parts in. Like I didn't have, but even then, like my house was overrun with boxes and stuff. Yeah, my fiance was not particularly pleased with that. Um, we have a shop space now, so that's eased that a lot. But yeah, it was very like I said, it was still very shoestring, but we got it done and we shipped all those units. And it took a little longer than we had hoped, with lots of hiccups along the way. But yeah, I think that's kind of par for the course for Kickstarter, and I'm pretty happy with what we accomplished.
With version 1. So Andrew,
Yeah.
that's where you originally found out about this. So you explained, you were working your way through the ski industry. It says here on your thing, you're kind of you're more of the entrepreneurial kind of minded dude. So you see this, and your whole life you've been like, all right, how do I make my mark in the ski industry? How do I do something different? And then you see the Kickstarter. Like, did someone send it to you? Did you just come across it one day, like on?
I think when I first actually saw it, it was probably just after the Kickstarter had closed, but it was one of the unofficial posts. I think was where I first saw it. And yeah, like I say, I was kind of thinking like, what's that new model for a skier? You know, I spent a couple seasons in New Zealand doing the Nutcracker thing, and like something like.
Yeah, where?
I worked at Mount Hutt for 2 seasons, and then while we were down there, we skied like Craigieburn, Broken River, and Mount Olympus, all those places.
Great. I worked at Temple for a season.
Oh yeah, and just unreal the culture and that you get at at the club fields when you got the little Nutcrackers, and there only is 20 people on. There's like 2 massive mountain faces, and like it's an incredible experience of how do we create something like that in Canada, and. That's right when pandemic was happening. So I just recently had launched a new tourism marketing company that then failed when tourism and marketing dropped off the face of the planet for a little while. And so that's right when this all happened. And I was like, well, what if? And then kind of, the ideas started firing about we could use their PL1s maybe for this ski hill. And then it was, well, what if we were a part of the company of PL1? Maybe that's the way to get in there. And, just reached out to these guys. We had a chat. We got to know each other. We went for a ski. I think that was like the first week of June up on Seymour. Just found a bunch of snow and went for a ski. And I was like, yeah, it works. This thing is pretty sweet.
Yeah, so you tested it out. So just to clarify, the PL1 is the name of the model that you're working with?
Yeah.
The product.
Lift one, I think is that the idea is portable lift one.
That was the idea. It's not the most original name in the world, and but it could. We're kind of trying to focus on.
You can tell the engineer came up with that name versus the marketing guy.
Real sexy PL1.
Well, my thought process behind it was that the focus is on the bigger brand, and we'll have but yeah, it's what it is. And
the Zoa's got the more interesting name. Hey, I mean, where Zoa came from for the actual name of the company?
Because Zoa is the name of it's Zoa is just the name of a peak in the Coquihalla, which is kind of a region where one of the first areas I went backcountry skiing. It's a popular area for for people who are relatively it's a relatively beginner friendly area for backcountry skiing. So it was one of the first places I went, and I thought it was a great name, three letter name. Sounds good. Unfortunately, I think The Rock ended up starting an energy drink company with the same name shortly after, but that might have hurt our.
We got to get The Rock out with one of these.
Yeah,
it might actually be a good thing because people are going to be typing in that'll pop up. So there'll be a lot of that. Collateral eyeballs because they'll be like, oh, this isn't what I looked at, but this is kind of cool. What I could have my own ski lift.
Yeah, no, and realistically, I don't think anyone's confusing us with the energy. No one's confusing me with The Rock, that's for sure. And I don't think anyone's confusing us with the energy drink at this point. So I'm not too worried about it. It's just kind of funny.
Okay, so you guys meet up. You're like, hey, this is a cool idea. Tell me more. You guys kind of create this relationship. I'm sure a few phone calls and emails were sent back and forth. And you go up to Seymour in the backcountry there, and you just set it up, figure out how it works. So like, Robert, are you because we also have to mention that your brother Eric is a co-founder of the company with you. So are all three of you guys up there just doing a demo for Andrew, hoping to get him on board, or what was the kind of vibe of that meeting?
Yeah, it was well, we met up for dinner the day before, and kind of met each other in person for the first time. And then the next morning we were up on the hill, and we set up a line and let him go for a rip, and thankfully everything worked. And it was that was I guess it was enough. What do you have anything to add?
Is it one of those classic Vancouver days where my girlfriend spent the day down paddleboarding? Well, I'm up skiing in the first week of June, and it was outstanding up there. Yeah. It kind of became what I think is one of the coolest parts about the PL1 is the lifts have long since closed, but everywhere, most of the mountains out west here, the skiing is still great well into the late spring, into the summer, but there's no lifts up there. And it's just kind of reopens all kinds of new possibilities. Where in the past, yeah, I might not have got the motivation to just go walk up there to ski, 400 feet vertical. But if I can go up there and do 10 laps and build a jump, well, that's sweet. I'm in.
Yeah, amazing. So then that's how you were like, all right, I'm down with this. This is fun. This is actually, and then I'm sure you seem like the kind of guy whose mind, as on the drive home, just started to spin out of control, being like, hey, what are the practical implications of this? How can we use this? How can we set this up? How do we market it? Who does it go to?
It officially ruined, I think, every road trip with my girlfriend we ever go on, because now every mountain is, oh my God, that would be a sweet PL1 spot. Oh my God, look over there. That'd be a sweet PL1 spot.
Amazing. So you guys are now together. You guys figure out how it's going to balance out. So what are each of your roles within Zoa?
So I'm still like, technically I'm the CEO, but I'm, still kind of the tech lead more than anything. My brother Eric, he's on marketing, and I would say Andrew's mostly on like business development. I think that's fair to say. He's kind of and like sales and also doing some marketing stuff and helping us kind of expand the business.
Yeah, that's how we kind of really pushing out there, and that's what's one of the things when we kind of met. I know these guys, they started with a direct to customer one-on-one, which is still almost entirely what our customers are. But where I was kind of thinking was the idea of how do we use this to, maybe it's at a ski area, a place like Red, for example, or a place like Whistler that's got a whole bunch of areas still inside their tenure that's kind of not really accessed or used yet, where you could dedicate like, hey, this area of trees over here, this is kind of a PL1 zone, and we've got maybe 3 or 4 ropes that patrol goes up in the morning and says, hey, it's good skiing right here. Let's let these ropes out. And then your lift ticket for the day is basically renting your PL1. And maybe it's a guided experience, maybe not, but it's kind of like cat skiing, like side country cat skiing that a lot of ski hills are getting into the side product where, you get your own little private area and you get, a little battery charging station at the bottom. You go do your 5, 6, 7, 10 runs, swap out the battery, keep going all day. And you got private ski area for like 20 people.
Very
so
cool.
That's kind of part of the thought is we're trying to, we got a few people that are in test mode. I probably shouldn't say who they are, but there's a big ski area out west that bought a few test ones. There's a backcountry lodge in BC here that's working on it. And someone in the Midwest, I won't say too much more to give them away, that's fairly keen.
Very cool. So I will get to that in a minute, but I want to get a bit more information of how it works. So
sure.
Say I get to this prime zone. What are some of like the conditions or I guess terrain features or terrain conditions or like elevation, slope angle, like is there, I'm sure there's a specific parameter that it fits into perfectly. Like what kind of, so if I wanted to go and use this thing, first of all, I want to know what kind of terrain does it work with? Where can I go? And then 2, how actually does it work? Like, how do you set it up? Is it an anchor system? Do you like wrap it around a tree? Like, and then with the machine, how does it get back up and down the hill kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the basic premise is the way you're going to kind of go about your day with the PL1. You're skidding up to wherever spot you want to set up. You're going to skid up to the top of your run. You're going to put in, what we normally do is we put an anchor in, a snow anchor, and we provide one with the, and you just do a T-slot, and that thing can hold a ton of weight in most conditions. And,
so you just bury it down, cover snow on it, kind of creating
exactly.
Creating a snow anchor. And for those of you watching on YouTube, he just kind of showed us on the screen. Andrew just showed us one.
Really quick, like usually dig a depending on the density of the snow, like usually a 30-40 centimeter deep hole is plenty. Just plop it in, bury it back in, stomp on it a few times.
If it's really light snow, you got to dig it a little deeper. But it's these are used in mountaineering to hold just tons of weight. But the big thing for us too is like, so anyways, I'll get to that. But you'll put your anchor in, and then we have our rope is always in a rope bag, and then so you have your rope attached to that anchor, and then you ski that down, and you flake it out of the bag as you go, and it basically just will, it should just run out of your hand. Occasionally, you might get a small tangle, and you have to stop, and usually it just pulls apart. But
I'm sure you have directions on how to repack it properly as well, so that it doesn't get.
Yeah, well, the great thing is you can use the device to repack it at the end of the day. So it's actually quite easy to clean up. Yeah. So you're going to lay it out along your, kind of your desired route. And when you get to the bottom, you're going to take the PL1 out of your bag. I wish I had one with me right now, but basically you're going to put the rope through. There's a series of pulleys, and you're just going to put the rope through anywhere along that line. You can do it. You don't need to use the end or anything. And yeah, you're going to kind of weave it through there. It's compared to a sewing machine a lot. You just pull on the end, and then you're pretty much good to go. You ideally have a harness with you, especially if you're on steeper terrain, and then you can clip into the harness, push the throttle, and it'll pull you up the hill along that line.
Kind of like you were saying, Andrew. It's kind of like a nutcracker, but it's like a mechanized. It's like a nutcracker where the motor is in your hands versus at the top of the hill.
Yeah, and when you have the harness, it's more like a T-bar experience as opposed to a rope tow, because you just kind of sit right into it, and there's really no
right.
effort.
And do you need any like tension from the back?
No,
Like,
you don't.
no?
So that was one of the bigger challenges of the product. You don't need any tension on the bottom, so it's loose in the bottom. I mean, for us, that's important. It means it's not a hazard to anyone else who might run into the rope.
So you're not setting up a taut rope. You're just putting the anchor in,
exactly, yeah.
unleashing the rope, and then you're feeding the rope through this machine, and basically you're just connecting back and creating tension, and then it's pulling up towards the front, and then the back is just kind of loose as it falls out the back of the out the back of the motor.
Yeah, it's going to kick it out.
Yeah.
It's going to kick it out loose, and yeah, when on skis we typically just have it go between our legs. On the snowboard, you kind of have to choose which side you're riding on and try to kick it out. But yeah,
cool.
But that's the key part with the whole safety experience, with not having the taut line. The people often will, one of the first suggestions we'll get is, I don't want to get clotheslined out there by having this tight line in the backcountry.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought it was. I thought you were setting up like a taut ski lift.
No,
no,
you don't.
Rope
we leave it loose at the bottom, and it's in part a safety thing, and the other thing, it's also more convenient for the user. You only have to anchor one line. You don't have to spend any time tensioning it. And you're good to go. So it's very quick to set up. And at the end of the day, all you have to do is really take the anchor out at the top and then ski down, and you can drive the rope entirely back into the rope bag from the bottom if you want to.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And then what kind of terrain is possible with this thing?
Well, the big limitation we always tell everyone is mostly to remember that this is not a climbing device. So in theory, the product itself, it'll pull about, when it's fully charged, it'll pull about 200 pounds of tension, or a little under that. So that's going to pull that's 200 pounds it would pull vertically, right? Or I think we list on the website 190, but anyway, that'll pull that vertically. And so on a slope, you're going to pull, like the vast majority of people, almost any slope that you would realistically ski. The problem is obviously that this isn't a climbing device, so that's not like a load rating. The rope you're using isn't a climbing rope. So our big limitation for people is don't use this on anything where if something were to fail, because I said this is not a climbing rope, so don't use this on somewhere where if the rope fails or the device fails, you would hurt yourself. And beyond that, you're pretty much free to use it on whatever terrain is convenient. Now, I will say that optimal slopes for this thing, if you want to get the most vertical out of it, you're looking at anywhere between 10 and 20 degree slopes. And so you're kind of like blue runs, essentially, are the way to get the most vertical. When you're going steeper than that.
That's thinking about the up track too, going up 10, 20.
Yeah.
But
See if you can find a spot like a logging road or a clear cut or something like that.
Well, definitely steeper than a logging road. Yeah. But
or maybe for like access, right? Like if you had like a switchback road.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, we're not talking about 10 to 20, 20% grade. We're talking about 10 to 20 degrees, which tends to be a lot steeper than people realize. I think people really fixate on these like small sections of slope that are 45 degrees, and it's like, okay, you ski that for 10 feet on, or like these are the reality is
45 degrees on skis is steep, man. Like,
extremely steep, and the reality is most skiers think they're skiing steeper terrain than they are most of the time, which is something we've learned is very, very common.
in dealing with this. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then, fairly mellowish slopes, like you said, kind of bluish. Is good for access and good for like,
Yeah, certainly you can get it. Like you can certainly do it up a black run. When you're getting into that double black territory, it's you're probably in a place where you don't want to tumble backwards, and that's where you want to cut it off. But yeah,
And you're thinking too about optimal performance there too. When we're thinking optimal, like battery range, I know, like I'm thinking the place that we go most often here. I got one spot that we kind of developed here. It's kind of a little bit of our secret spot, and it averages about 27 degrees the whole thing. But then it's got the nice, probably about the top third of it is about 32, 33 degrees. And so where you lose out is you get a little bit less battery performance on the steeper runs. So whereas if you go 10 to 20 degrees, you can probably get 10 runs. Whereas if you're going to go like 25, 30, low 30s, you're probably getting more like 5-6 runs.
Okay, now is it like, so obviously it's battery powered. It's like it seems similar battery like an e-bike, I'm assuming, something similar.
Yeah, it's a lithium ion battery.
And so can you like same way as your GoPro, when the GoPro dies and you throw another battery in, can you like pack a second battery if you need to?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we sell extra batteries, and you can replace the battery without any tools.
Cool.
So that was important for us. I mean, I think what we've found is that most outings, one battery is enough for us. That's my personal experience, but certainly if you're going out and we have a good number of customers who have like a backyard setup, or they just have like basically like when I go out, it's usually a pretty good approach before we set it up, right? But lots of guys will go out and there's very little approach for them, and they're going to set up and they want to ski all day. And so, in that case, you probably want an extra battery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, how long is it? Like, what's the length of the rope? Can you like increase the length of the rope, or is it at different sizes?
Yeah. So we provide with like the package that it's 1,000 feet of rope that we put with it, but you're welcome to use an extra length of rope if you want a longer run. The big sort of limitation for having really long runs, if you could chain 3 of these in a row if you wanted to. The only sort of real limitation there is, especially if you're on a steep slope, you might have to stop in the middle of after one of the runs, because the unit does like it's kind of got a certain duty cycle it's designed for, and if you're running this thing constantly for 3 runs on a steep slope, you might need to give it some time to cool down, which is the reality. But for most part, you can run, like we've definitely run plenty of times where we use 2 lines in a row. Again,
back to this last spring, the place that we normally go with my girlfriend and I, and then we each bring a rope out, and then we run it up the ridge line. So we usually only have about 1 3/4 rope out, kind of get up the rope line, and then we ski down the super steep bowl, kind of come in, and then you traverse back around to our rope. And we were running that last end of May, and it was like 18 degrees outside, and that was the first time that we saw any real overheating. And on the way up, the trick that actually I think it was one of the guys that you guys met, Robert, on the way up, you grab a little handful of snow and pack it on the side of the motor on the little radiator fins, and that seems to solve the problem pretty good.
Well, it's not the motor, but the motor controller that tends to get quite hot. And so that's why it's exposed. If you look at the product, the motor controller has a heat sink that's exposed. So it's if it does ever get too hot, you can put it in the snow, put some snow on the side, it'll cool down.
That's
Otherwise,
cool.
it takes about 4 or 5 minutes, put it in the snow, have a sandwich, and then you're good to go again.
Yeah, there you go. At the top, or before you drop in, or something along those lines. And then basically you get to the top of the rope, you unthread it or just release it, put it in your backpack, and then ski down again.
Exactly. Yeah. So once you get to the top, you pull the rope. So I always just pull it from the bottom where it exits and pull it out. And once it's past the little tension wheel, it just falls out, and then put it in your backpack. The handle comes out, slides out, so that it's easier to fit in your backpack and ski down.
Very cool. So I'm thinking about who. Oh, there it is. Yeah, cool. So I'm thinking about you showing us one right there. We'll put some photos up on the show notes page, as well as like some links to the site and that as well. So just thinking about who would be your market for this. So like thinking about who, like you mentioned, people having in their backyard. So we talked to a couple people on the show, a couple athletes on the show, Henrik Winstead, and in Sweden, he's got like a cool little like park set up in his backyard, and I think Jeff Houle as well out in Quebec set that up in his little backyard zone. Do you find at this stage, I guess this is like the big growth stage, is still trying to inform the masses and just educate people like, hey, this is a thing, check this out. Do you find people like that, the hobbyists, are the people that are kind of interested the most in it right now, or like who are you really directing this towards?
Well, I think that for us, the thing I've always said is, as a if you're a backcountry skier, this is a product that's not necessarily for every like outing or every mission, but I personally think it's basically for every backcountry skier. If you are kind of like we said earlier, if you're like one of us and your favorite part is the downhill, there's always going to be days where this is the perfect tool for you. So it's not going to be
not all backcountry skiers are there just for the walk up. Some of them actually like to go skiing too.
Well, exactly. If you're if you're going out for a big traverse, then this is probably not going to be the tool for you on that day. But even if you're someone who likes doing that, I like doing that kind of stuff every once in a while. There's also going to be days in your season where it just dumps snow, and maybe you have a zone you want to go to where it's safe to ski, and maybe avalanche risk is high. You can't go to do that big mission to go peak bagging, and you just want to do laps somewhere. Or
you're right. That's a good thought too, because that's a huge factor, because like a lot of people only get so many days off. And I still want to go skiing, but I can still turn it into something. Turn this day into something fun.
Yeah, so
just going out after work, like get off work at 4:00, I might got an hour, 2 hours of daylight left. I can really quickly scoot up the hill behind my house, set it up, and get 7-8 laps in the afternoon, where otherwise I'm not skiing that day.
Yeah, very, very cool. So what are some of the next steps? So what's the current stage that you're in with it right now, and then what are some of the next steps for you guys to grow as a business?
Well, I think for us right now, I mean, it's really about scale. Like, we're still quite small, and we really need to scale up. And we're excited that we've got units out there in the field now, and it's starting to be like last season. Basically, we had the Kickstarter units out there, but our customers aren't always, our customers are great, and but they're not doing the marketing for us. So, we were still relying last season on basically footage of ourselves going out and doing stuff, and that I think only goes so far. So we're really excited to be able to kind of expand on that a bit, and hopefully develop a bit more trust with customers, and get people over that hurdle to try this out.
All the early adopters jumped on board, so we got 200 plus in the wild, and now there's all that second group that's like, well, let's just wait and make sure it works. Let's make sure this thing is real. So this year, now that's this kind of setting up where, okay, we've got a good couple years of experience behind us now. It's kind of, this is the year to really go big.
All right.
Out there, we're looking to connect with other athletes and other folks out there. And, not even the pro athletes, but a lot of just, the Instagram dudes out there that have 1,000 people following, a couple thousand people following them. Like you mentioned, the backyard parks. Like we had, who was it? Jonathan Woodhouse took one out snowboarding on his little backyard park. And we sent one out to Julian Carr last year at the end of the year. So he's going to probably get out there on it this year. And so looking at some pros out there, if you're keen to go out and test for one, let's go for a ski. Or even if you're just an Instagram influencer guy, give us a holler and let's go for a ski together.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, and I will say also, we over the last couple seasons, we've learned a lot and improved the product a bunch as well. So on the technical side, we're really happy with where the product's at right now. And a lot of our customers are very good at getting back to us with any issues they have. So that's been great. We've been able to make updates, and we kind of, I don't know if you follow our stuff, we're pretty open about that. We have our kind of blog post where we update people on any changes we make. So, and we're making sure that any customers who bought the product, in the early days, all the Kickstarter backers are we're sending them the updated parts and stuff to make sure that everyone's got the greatest and the latest and greatest stuff, I guess. And
Very
yeah,
cool.
so we're
That's kind of
excited about that.
That's kind of exciting. It's really
Yeah.
exciting. I like this sort of thing where it's like, just do it yourself. That's kind of how the way the world's going right now is everybody's becoming a little bit more autonomous with the ability of the advancement of technology. Specifically, I'm thinking e-bikes specifically, right? Like 5 years ago, everyone's like, e-bikes, who's riding e-bikes? Oh, don't blah blah blah. Everybody has an e-bike now.
Yeah.
Like, living in Whistler, I see more e-bikes than I see real bikes.
I was the anti-e-bike guy for so long, and then a friend of mine bought one for a kid out there, and we went out riding it. And normally we go to Morning Mountain at Nelson, and I never knew why there was berms on the uphill trail before. But normally I'd like kill myself to do one run of the day, and now we take our e-bike out. We just did 7 laps. Like, that's sick.
Yeah, and that's for the mountain biking and downhilling. But also, I'm just like the e-bikes that you can get like just ripping around town as like a mode of transportation, right? Which a lot of these people are either walking or they're taking a bus. But now I got this sweet e-bike for $2,000 that I can get around fast and easy. It's almost like you think about a lot of those like Southeast Asian countries like Thailand and Indonesia and all these places, and it's all scooters, man. Scooters. This is basically the mountain town scooter is the e-bike. So, and that opened up so much possibility for people to have so much range of movement and more flexibility in their lives and transportation. And this is kind of that same, I'd say, a parallel to that within the skiing industry. It's like, I don't need a ski lift anymore. Maybe I don't want to have to do a full day of ski touring where I get 2 laps in, or maybe I can do a little bit of both and get 4 or 5 laps in.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'd say, obviously we mentioned earlier, the product, you still have to carry it up the first time. So the unfortunate thing for us is we're not quite the direct replacement for all that stuff yet. You still have to put some work in initially. But
you're kind of creating your own like lane though, right? Like,
yeah, you definitely get more out of your day. And I think for people that are, I think it's a great opportunity like I said, I think it's a great opportunity for everyone who just wants to get more downhill time in. But we're especially excited about the people who haven't had or maybe losing the opportunity. Like, maybe you're an older guy who's having more trouble getting that kind of vertical in your day.
Or you can't afford lift passes anymore because they're absurdly expensive, and you still want to get some skiing in. And I can pay for this, and it lasts this long. This thing I'm going to have forever, or I can spend that same amount of money. Maybe that's a thought in some people's minds too. It's like, I can just go and do this on my own. I don't have to rely on the parking and the travel and the lift passes and the $30 burgers and all that kind of stuff.
There's the new marketing messaging. The PL1 is your lifetime season pass.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. So where can people find a Zoa? If I want to buy one, what do I got to do?
So anywhere, if you just go to zoaengineering.com or zoaeng.com, just Google Zoa Engineering or the PL1, you'll find our website. And we sell it direct to consumers on the website, and we'll ship it to your door. As long as you're in Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, shouldn't have any problems. At Chile also, I think we've managed to sell to. But unfortunately, we're still working on getting Europe online. But hopefully that'll be not too long, maybe this season. And
very cool. What does one of these cost?
Right now, what do we have? $2,100 for the complete package. That's Canadian. Sorry, it's have to work out.
It's 40% less in the States. Or something like that.
Something like that.
Whatever. If you're paying, just come to Canada and buy it in US dollars.
Yeah, the prices are all on the website. That's for the complete package. So that gives you everything you need to get going. So the extender itself, the rope, the anchor, the rope bag, and we have a frame for the rope bag, your charger, and you're good to go. If you want to buy, like we said earlier, if you want to buy an extra battery, we have those available as well. So
The upsells. Do you have like a little video that goes along with, like a how-to video or anything like that
Yeah.
that goes along with it?
Yes, and I would strongly recommend anyone who is going to get into it, check out the videos online on our YouTube channel. Again, Zoa Engineering. I think it's Zoa.engineering on the YouTube channel. I might be off on that, but check out the how-to videos on the YouTube channel because there is a bit of a learning curve and you do need to know some details to get things right and avoid any sort of headaches. And it really helps to get yourself set up properly and to kind of know how the product works before you get into it and not just be figuring it out on the mountain.
Yeah, that's a good call. Good call.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you giving me that rundown. I like I said, I was aware of it last year, and I was like, this is strange. I'm like, how does this work? What's? So I've been interested in learning more about it. I think it could really help a lot of people. Like, there's so many people that are so keen to get out there, and they will go to any length to get out there. So this might just fit into some people's, sensibilities. Like I said, maybe they don't want to go and do big, steep, crazy days. Maybe they don't want to spend the whole day ski touring. Maybe they just want to do a little bit of both. Maybe have some fun with your buds and just do some laps. Like, that sounds right up my alley.
One of the cool things on the accessibility side that we kind of didn't mention here, but we had what was her name again? Was it Amanda? I can't remember her name, but one of the disabled athletes, a paraskier with a sled skier, and she was getting out now. Couldn't previously, obviously, skin up and do backcountry, so she had a guy go up ahead of time and kind of do it in reverse and hook the clip onto the front of her sit ski, and he was at the top with the PL1, and then could holler all the way up the line to hit some backcountry lines.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're still going to find with this like user this user feedback, you're going to find a lot of new things that maybe you didn't think about how the product's being used and what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about the opportunities again with para skiers and getting people to access terrain they couldn't otherwise is really exciting. And also I think somewhat related to that in terms of like other applications, we know that there's one of the things we're working on is more of these business applications. So where just having a bit more accessibility to terrain can go a long way. So we think like ski patrol, search and rescue. We're really trying to push to get some kind of case studies done and see if there's good applications there. If we can help people make use of their time more effectively, or just travel more efficiently through backcountry terrain. That's kind of the ultimate goal.
Interesting. I like the idea of potentially like search and rescue could probably find practical uses for it as well.
Yeah, there's and for them kind of like the military. We had 3 or 4 different militaries reach out, and they're saying for them, they got to move heavy gear up hills, up through the mountains when they're taking camp, moving to a new place. They got to pull these. I can't remember the pokes. I think they called the sleds, and so they want to test these out to use the PL1 to haul these big heavy gear sleds through the mountains.
Yeah, get that military contract, boys. That's what you're aiming for, right? I love it.
Hey, the funniest one we had was this one dude from out of Wisconsin said, "Hey, could I use this to haul my deer out of the woods back to the car?"
Oh yeah.
To which Eric, our partner here, had maybe the best comeback of all time. Said, "I think the deer might have a hard time using the thumb throttle."
Yeah, I love it. That's actually great too for hunters. Would be a great thing to do. Is just to have a sled and just haul it out of there. That's another, like you said, user experience is probably going to come up with so many more options for you to think about that maybe you can blend into your marketing. But that's really cool. So I appreciate you guys coming and having a chat with me. Like I said, I've been interested in it. I'd like to come and try it out. So we'll have to chat after this and see if we can set something up for the winter time.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
But yeah, you said zoaengineering.com or zoaeng.com.
Yep.
And you have an Instagram account, I'm sure, social media. Just Google Zoa, ZOA or ZOA for those in the States.
Yep. And and that'll take you to us. Right now we are still I think if you're looking up portable lift or if you're looking up Zoa, you should find us pretty quick. And feel free to, if anyone's out there who wants to, who's curious, there's questions we haven't answered here, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to chat and answer people's questions.
Right on. If you're going following and you want to go for a ski, give it a test this winter, give us a holler. We're setting up the schedule.
Yeah, right on. Cool. And awesome. So keep your eyes out for that. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to testing it out this winter.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks.
thanks. Great to talk to you.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.